A very special guest today. Vered Caplan is the chairman, president, CEO of a company called Orgenesis.
Wow.
Orgenesis.
You need a nice,
And if I'm not mistaken, you don't live here in the States, do you?
No, I don't. But I actually grew up as a kid in San Diego.
Did you
Coronado.
really?
Yeah.
Now, where do you live now?
Well, now I live in Switzerland.
Switzerland. And the company is based in?
Well, it's a U.S. public company. We have offices in Maryland. And we actually have offices in Europe, in Belgium, Germany.
And you just happen to be in San Diego for this weekend?
Well, meeting some customers, partners.
I detect a Coronado accent.
I do too.
No,
right. I was going to say Arkansas.
When you're a kid, you grow up around that.
Well,
you can't.
I was going to say Texas, South Texas. By the way, they're publicly traded under the stock symbol ORGS. ORGS is the stock symbol, and you can go to orgenesis.com. You guys are all about cell and gene therapy. Now, here in San Diego, you may be watching us in New York City or driving somewhere in Oklahoma or even listening to us overseas. But San Diego is an innovation economy, one of the biopharma, biotech leaders in the world. And just as residents, lifelong residents, Russ and I, very familiar with hearing things about gene therapy and cell and gene therapy, otherwise known as CGT. I'll let you take it away, though. Talk about this, why it's so important, especially in a post-COVID or almost post-COVID or maybe new normal COVID environment that we're going through. Talk about that.
So, these therapies, it's been like a decade of innovation that now is becoming, into fruition. And if you think of biotech in general, everybody talks about biotech.
That's us.
Yeah, what do you do with biotech? You make proteins, right? That's what you do. You take cells, you make proteins. But typically, proteins don't just run around in the body by themselves.
Really, they need some direction.
Exactly. They need the homing, they need the control, everything about them. And that's what you need cells, right, to do.
Wow.
So when you're talking about cell and gene therapies, you're talking about actually reprogramming cells to make the right proteins, to control them, and just make better medication.
Are proteins just too stupid to teach, so you got to teach the cells to bring them
Well, they're the messengers.
That's one way to put it.
Send them out, and then
Those damn proteins are just too stupid to teach.
Proteins. Get over here with a cell.
But what's interesting is what you're doing is you are raising the effectiveness of medication, right?
Yes.
I mean, you're trimming the sails, so to speak. If you think about a sailboat race, all you're kind of do, honestly, is point in a different direction and make it go faster or better or stronger. That's basically what you guys are doing, right?
Yeah, and when you think of medication, look how much, you hear so many people worried, side effects, vaccines. So here we're talking about personalized medicines, right? Things that are specially attuned. These are cells, you take them from your own body.
Yeah.
They belong to you. You reprogram them, you put them back.
And that's a better word
It's almost a personalized vaccine, right?
Personalized
therapy.
And that's a better word to use than customized, because it's not just customized and then placed out in the world. It's personalized.
Yeah, because that feels like a one-size-fits-all, and that doesn't work. And I think that was a big part of the problem with maybe attacking COVID. I have to ask you, though, only because we're not bio junkies here, but here in San Diego, one of the big news stories for several years was the fact that CGTs are really expensive. And it was cost prohibitive to even develop it. And then by the time you got a thumbs up, nobody could afford it. So it'd have to be a compassionate healthcare thing for anybody to actually benefit from it. That has gone in the other direction. So my question is that true? And then why has it gone the other direction?
So unfortunately, it's not so much in the other direction, right? I mean, one of the problems, you're taking a cell from your body, you're bringing it to a centralized location. You've got 3 weeks of work of perfecting.
Like a crash course in college.
Exactly, it is a crash course. And then you're maybe expanding, making more of these, sending them back. And when you're talking, for instance, about cancer, you are talking about a personalized vaccine, right? Against those cancerous cells in there. So you're actually getting at a very expensive product. These products, even today, hundreds of thousands of dollars per patient. And on the other hand, you see scientists from all over the world really pushing ahead the science, the knowledge, immuno-oncology, everything about understanding how cells work together and how to activate them, reprogram them, has expanded tremendously, but the cost has not come down.
Oh, that's got to change.
And that has got to change, right? Because I just want, it's actually heartbreaking when you think of it. You've got, for instance, a blood cancer. You've got a therapy that actually has a very high chance of
But it's
healing.
cost prohibitive, and that's the
$400,000 per patient.
Why is that expensive? Is it the stuff that goes into making it, or is it just all
It's the way it's done. So one of the things about these therapies, right, is they're not, think of them, what's a like a cell therapy, everybody knows it's not reprogrammed bone marrow transplantations.
Okay.
So think of doing all the bone marrow transplantations in the US at one location.
Right.
It's a logistic nightmare,
Yeah.
right? And it's very difficult. So these new therapies, these new drugs are not your typical off-the-shelf drug, right? So the whole way of making them is not typical to biotech, right?
Good.
So that's the issue. You've got to make them, you've got to develop them, you've got to design them in a different way. So it's just like, let's give a comparable. Remember mainframe computers?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
So what are we doing? We're taking
By the way,
a
Russ
cell.
has no idea what you're talking about.
Mainframe. The mainframe computer. I was part of it.
Yeah, well, I was part of it. And, you know, what were you doing then? What are we doing here? We're reprogramming cells, right?
Right.
So instead of doing this at a centralized location, right, in this big mainframe room, you want to personalize it. You want to make it available locally.
Right.
So you want to put the hardware locally where you can easily reprogram these cells. And you want to make the software very user-friendly. And one thing pushes the other, right? So why is this different? Typically, biotech drug, you develop the drug, and then you figure out, well, how am I going to make this?
Sure.
How am I going to build a big factory
Yeah.
around it? Here, you can't do that. So what we try to do, and what the goal is to actually make the little factory
Right.
together with the therapy. And then you kind of validate, develop everything together.
Sure.
And that's the difference between Orgenesis, right?
Yes.
That's really the key selling proposition and the tiebreaker, right? That makes you
Exactly.
different from everyone else.
Yes. So give you another example. Let's say you're making the perfect apple pie, okay?
And I do.
I am sure
Thanks
you
for
do.
noticing.
And yeah, so that's lovely. You invite the friends, neighbors, everybody enjoys apple pie.
Right.
That's the beginning of these therapies, home cooking by clinicians in the hospitals, right? Now you want to sell apple pies to everyone. You better have a very good apple pie making machine, right? Because you want the same apple pie everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's the idea. Develop the apple pie machine together with the
Right.
apple pie.
The recipe.
Exactly.
So-
Put it
so-
all
so-
together, and then it's low cost, and make it locally.
Franchise it.
So you've done it so you can not only manufacture as well as deliver inside of a hospital environment.
Well-
isn't that the idea?
So what we do is we actually bring it as close as possible to the hospital
Right.
environment. So we have what we call our ampules, Orgenesis mobile production in units and labs,
Sure.
okay?
Yeah.
Little sweet ampules about container size.
Yeah.
And we put them as close as possible as needed to the patient care. And why does that solve the problem? Because you don't have any problem if you want to duplicate them. So you've already validated one, you've qualified one.
And it's fresh.
And it's fresh. Fresh is very important.
Well, that's
for
what I was
these
wondering.
therapies.
Like a hamburger, you don't want it
Like-
shipped out from Yuma.
Not sure
So
the
what-
hamburger analogy works.
Well, I'm just
but
saying.
I'm just saying.
Because I'm getting fast food because
Well,
it's
they're
a
making-
chain.
I think cold beer would be better.
Well, okay.
Well, they are making hamburgers in little bioreactors now,
Oh,
right?
no, that's another story.
With you, by the way, her name is Vered Caplan. She's the president and CEO of a company called Orgenesis. They are publicly traded under the stock symbol ORGS. You can go to orgenesis.com. My question for you is, what's next for you as a company? I mean, so what stage are we at in the arc of the story with the FDA? What's next for you guys in the next 5 years? And we don't talk about share price and numbers. I'm just talking about technology speaking and bringing it to market.
So what we've done in the past 2 years, we used to work centralized like everyone else, but we sold that division off because we really wanted to solve the industry issues. We really wanted to get these therapies to patients. So what we do is we partner with great biotech scientists,
Sure.
companies, hospitals who develop these therapies, okay? We combine them with our ampules. We ampulize these therapies, right? We bring them close. And what you want to make sure that you have a quality system,
Yeah.
right? That's available everywhere. So what we've done up till now is set up a network. So we have these point-of-care centers where we can send out our lovely ampules.
Ampules. That's a great word.
With the therapies in them.
Yeah.
And for us, the next stage is actually expanding this network. So we have the skeleton, we have the point-of-care center, we have the quality system, we have the therapies and the technologies combined, and now we just have to make it as available as possible to as many hospitals.
Maybe
as
need a
possible.
weekend sale. Ampules this Sunday, half off.
That's exactly right.
Well, we
Call
don't
us.
sell the ampules, we actually provide
You're selling the factory and the delivery device
we
inside of a
sell-
hospital environment.
let's call it the apps.
There you
Okay,
go. Very
we
good.
put in the ampule,
Wow, that's
we
good.
sell the therapies.
It really, well, listen, I want you to come back. I want to follow this story because it's really great. Her name is Vered Caplan. Vered Caplan is the CEO, president of Orgenesis. ORGS is the stock symbol, Orgenesis.com. Fantastic stuff. We don't get a chance to talk to somebody in plain English.
Yeah.
Unbelievable stuff. Thanks
With a
so
cool
much, Vered.
Coronado accent.
By the way,